The Vorith High Command had never felt more victorious. Admiral Kethera stood on the bridge of his flagship, mandibles clicking in what his species called a smile, as his crew successfully locked towing beams onto the drifting human vessel. The ship was called USS Relentless, a destroyer-class warship from the United States Space Naval Command. It had been separated from its fleet during the Battle of Proxima Relay, its engines crippled, its crew evacuated. Or so the Vorith believed. "We have secured the human warship," his communications officer announced proudly. "It is fully intact. Their technology will advance our weapons program by decades." Kethera let out a slow, satisfied breath. Humans had only been a spacefaring civilization for 60 years. Yet somehow, they had become the most annoyingly resilient species in the known galaxy. Capturing one of their warships, undamaged, was a prize beyond calculation. "Take it to Research Station Omega-7, Kethera ordered. "I want their weapon systems dissected within the week." Nobody on that bridge considered the possibility that the ship wasn't actually empty. Master Chief Petty Officer James "Jimmy" Kowalski had been asleep in the maintenance shaft when the evacuation alarm sounded. By the time he woke up, the pods were gone. He wasn't panicking. Jimmy Kowalski had spent 19 years in the U.S. Space Navy. He'd survived 3 combat deployments, 2 hull breaches, and 1 very bad Thanksgiving dinner in 2089. A little alien abduction wasn't going to rattle him. He pulled up the ship's internal diagnostics on his wrist terminal. Engines were dead. Communications array, offline. Primary weapons, locked down. He cracked his knuckles. "All right, Relentless," he muttered to the empty corridor. "Let's see what we're working with." The Vorith science team boarded the USS Relentless 40 minutes after docking at Omega-7. Lead researcher Prethon had studied human technology extensively from salvaged debris. He considered himself something of an expert. He walked confidently through the airlock, tablet in hand, ready to catalog everything. The lights were on. That was the first strange thing. The second strange thing was the smell, something warm and chemical that his sensors identified as burnt coffee. "The ship should be on emergency reserve power," his assistant whispered nervously. "Residual systems," Prethon said confidently, though his secondary eyelids blinked twice, a Vorith sign of unease. Then the intercom crackled to life. "Y'all might wanna knock next time." Jimmy had spent the first 40 minutes doing what any reasonable Navy engineer would do aboard a captured ship. He'd restored partial power to non-weapon systems, enough to be comfortable. He'd brewed coffee from the emergency rations. He'd rerouted the secondary coolant lines to fix a leak he'd been meaning to report for 3 weeks. And he'd very carefully, very quietly, begun the manual boot sequence on the ship's AI defense grid. Not to fight. He wasn't stupid. He was one man against an alien space station. But the Relentless had something the Vorith didn't know about, a U.S. Navy protocol called Sleeping Dog. Designed for exactly this scenario. If a warship was captured and a crew member remained aboard, Sleeping Dog gave that crew member full autonomous control of every system, every lock, every internal defense mechanism. Every single door on the ship now answered to Jimmy Kowalski. What followed was later described in the official Vorith incident report as an unclassifiable tactical nightmare. Jimmy didn't attack anyone. He just made the ship completely, magnificently, impossibly unlivable for the research team. Doors locked mid-sentence during conversations. Corridors flooded with harmless but disorienting strobe lighting. The gravity in Lab Section C reversed itself for 11 minutes. The ship's internal temperature dropped to 4 degrees Celsius in one wing and spiked to 38 in another. Every screen aboard began playing what Jimmy described as good old American rock music at full volume. When 3 Vorith soldiers tried to reach the engine room, they found every corridor rerouted through a maze that Jimmy had personally redesigned using the ship's modular bulkhead system. It took them 45 minutes to find the exit. Jimmy sat in the captain's chair, drank his coffee, and waited. Exactly 3 hours and 4 minutes after boarding, Admiral Kethera himself opened a direct channel to the Relentless. His voice was very, very calm. The kind of calm that comes after dignity has completely departed. "Human. We wish to discuss the return of your vessel." Jimmy leaned back in the chair, boots up on the console. "Funny," he said. "I was just about to call you." He took a long sip of coffee. "I take it back on one condition. You boys are gonna escort me home personally. Full honors." He paused. "And somebody on your crew is making me breakfast." There was a long silence on the other end. "Agreed." Master Chief Petty Officer James Kowalski was returned to U.S. Space Naval Command the following morning. He was awarded the Navy Cross, promoted 2 grades, and given a formal commendation. The Vorith never attempted to capture a human warship again. Some ships aren't abandoned. Some are just waiting.